while the galactic center itself is a fixed frame of reference traveling through space at over 1 million miles an hour. Um, if, say, the comet goes around the sun at a very, relatively tight orbit, the comet appears to go directly behind the sun and light up, swing around the other side of it, and then is basically jettisoned off into the void of infinite space in the opposite direction as the velocity of the sun. And so, if you try to understand how that comet knows where the sun is going to be 75 years later, as it's traveled around a curve going over 500,000 miles an hour, and the galactic frame of reference traveling at over 1 million. So even if the comet could retain the galactic frame of reference throughout all of this, which is ridiculous and doesn't even work in theory, but even assuming that it could maintain that galactic frame of reference after being violently compelled in an opposite direction as that, but even assuming that's the case, which is theoretically impossible, how does it know where the sun is going to be 76 years later? It just doesn't make sense if the sun is traveling at the velocities given in the heliocentric model. So, do we have an explanation for comets? No. We've all been going on the assumption that theoretical physics and astrophysics had it correct all our lives, and so we just assume that they had it right, and we don't ever look into it. So, and we'll take a look at the article. Rumor claims gravitational waves have been detected at LIGO. Um, well, I don't believe it. Okay, see a bunch of ads. Let's watch the video. I'll probably get a copyright strike on this.
Gravitational waves are the last prediction of Einstein's theory of general relativity, and they seem almost impossible to detect. But have we finally done it? What is it about Einstein? Why is he the most...
And I would submit that they haven't done it, or he wouldn't be asking the question. And also, if you look at the recent debacle involving what was it, the Planck satellite, and what was it, Bicep, I think, something like that. They had also recently claimed to have discovered gravitational waves, but it turned out that it was just background noise. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is something else like that, because gravity doesn't actually exist. It couldn't possibly theoretically exist. But anyway, we'll just continue.
famous and best loved smart person ever? It has a lot to do with his revolutionary theory of general relativity, in which he showed us that the force of gravity is an illusion. Instead, mass warps the fabric of 4D space-time, leading to what we see as gravitational motion. Check out this playlist for more details. Now, it turns out that general relativity makes predictions far beyond the familiar gravity. There's the deflection of light that we see as gravitational lensing. There's the slowing of time in gravitational fields. There's the dragging of space-time by spinning masses. Einstein is amazing because every one of these predictions from his beautiful work has been physically tested and verified.
No, they
We
haven't.
love Einstein because he's been proven right so many times.
No, he
However,
hasn't.
there's one last incredible prediction that has never been directly observed. Gravitational waves.
Ever.
The idea of gravity not as a force but as warped space-time is often depicted in analogy as a flexible rubber sheet being depressed by a heavy ball. Now, this isn't entirely apt. However, the
No,
analogy
it's
can give us
not.
a sense of what a gravitational wave really is. Drop a ball onto a rubber sheet and a dip forms, which then causes other objects to move differently along the sheet, analogous to gravity. Move the ball around and I create a series of ripples that flow outwards on the sheet, similar to the ripples on a pond. Same deal with gravitational waves. Accelerate a mass through space in the right way, and you produce gravitational ripples, an outflowing fluctuation of expanding and contracting space-time. So what sort of movement?
The reason I just get so turned off by all this is because it's assuming the whole theory is correct without any proof for the theory itself. So astrophysics is looking for gravity waves and assuming that they're there and assuming that they're going to find them. But again, all of that is hinging on the Earth being a spinning globe, which it isn't. Okay, it just isn't. It's demonstrably, provably, that's not even a question anymore. And so we theoretically don't need gravity. And the behavior of, I guess that was some kind of a binary system. But the behavior of binary systems could be something related to electromagnetism or something else, but certainly not gravity. So that's sort of my point, and the whole thing that he's going off on here, saying that Einstein has been confirmed and verified. No, theoretically, maybe, perhaps, other theories can support his theory, but when you get down to brass tacks, when you look at these assumptions and you really question them, people like this are just mindless repeaters. They are very well educated, very smart, but in terms of thinking for themselves and really understanding the world, they're totally snowed. So, no offense to this guy. I don't want to get a copyright strike for this. So, anyways, keeping on going back to the. These are just the filtered out comments, by the way. Flat Earth Group has become a cult. They've been seduced into a distraction away from the greatest commands and are lost with tickling ear fantasies, the revelation of flat Earth. I know you think that's probably the case, but unfortunately it's not. It's actually the other way around. Unfortunately, you're the person in the conversation that has been distracted because you obviously believe we live on a spinning globe and we don't. So, William, the Flat Earth group has become a cult. Oh, already read that. Okay, so there's a duplicate. Um, okay, YouTube video. Let's see. Not to disrespect anyone, I don't want to get a copyright strike on any of these videos.
What's up, everyone?
Oh
Press for
God, that guy. Yeah, I can't stand that guy. I don't even want to look at his face. He's so stupid. He's a dumbass moron. Full movie, yeah, I will probably check that out. I think I've seen it if it's the one on Antarctica. Let's see. Music box. Ooh, it's an hour and a half.
I have been coming to Antarctica for about 13 years now, and when I came down the first time, I thought, yeah, this will be great to do once, just come to Antarctica, and then I can say, wow, I went to Antarctica, and then I signed on for a contract with them.
Oh God. Okay. So they went to the Antarctic. Great. They went to the South Polar region. Great. Not saying it doesn't exist, just saying it's not a continent on the bottom of a sphere. So, okay, I guess that's probably what they're trying to point out. If not, sorry. Okay, so the Coriolis, this is from Ron Rundhog. The Coriolis effect is absolute proof that the Earth is spinning. The Earth is moving faster at the equator than it is closer to the poles. Storms always rotate counterclockwise in the northern hemisphere and clockwise in the southern hemisphere because of the Coriolis effect. Okay, so the Coriolis effect takes with it a presupposition that the observations of opposite rotating cyclone forces in the northern and southern hemispheres, it takes the presupposition that that is only possible on a globe and only possible because of spinning. If you actually look at the azimuthal equidistant map, and I guess I'll just go ahead and pull it up. I think I have it favorited. If not, okay. So you see the nice pretty globe here, and you see all these different weather patterns just sort of acting kind of strange, just sort of going around in like nonsense patterns. And you can look at different sorts of particulates, uh, air, ocean, chemical particulates. For some reason, I just like using the particulates and this mode because it's just a little easier to look at. And you can sort of see what I'm talking about here. So let's there. Um, it's just the randomness of the weather patterns. It just sort of looks chaotic. It doesn't have any real rhyme or reason. These weather patterns are just spinning. Now, keep in mind, the face of the Earth is supposedly spinning over 1,000 miles an hour here. and down here, spinning half the speed as the hour hand on a clock. Um, so the argument is that all of the atmosphere is somehow, not only is it stuck to the face of the Earth and continues to spin many miles into the air directly above the ground below it, because it sort of has to in order for the flight times conundrum to work in their model, in the globe Earth model. But at the same time, the atmosphere is not stuck to the face of the Earth, and that's how you show the Coriolis effect. Now, one thing that I'll show you real quick is if you look at the same data in an azimuthal equidistant projection, which is right here, the AE projection, and we'll just put I think it's by default has the North Pole in the center. That's how the azimuthal equidistant works. It's sort of mostly correct here at the center, and then the further away you get to the edges, as you can see, all of the data gets skewed and squished around the latitude curves. So assuming that this is the actual face of the flat Earth, which I'm not 100% sure it is, but at least the particulates are correct, and the motion here actually begins to make some sense. Um, you've got opposite rotating cyclones in the south, then in the north, but the dividing line between the two isn't fixed at the equator, which is right here. It's this curved line here. If the Earth was actually a globe, those opposing cyclonic rotations would necessarily be divided directly at the equator and only at the equator. But instead, what we see is that line, since it is uh, currently summer in the south, that sort of path of rotation of the sun is perturbing the atmosphere away from its path and causing those opposing rotations in the cyclones. So I guess, this doesn't prove the flat Earth. It doesn't prove the globe Earth. It just shows that these observations actually can work in either model. Now, what proves the Earth is stationary is when you look at flight from New York to LA, the and then the return flight from LA to New York. The two flights are identical in duration oftentimes, which is physically impossible if the Earth was actually a globe. So I'll try to demonstrate what I'm showing here. So the flight from, say, here's about New York and here's about LA. I know it's not perfect, but it's about 2,500 miles between the 2 points. And these 2 points are both spinning about, say, 750 miles an hour towards the east. So that's that way, constantly spinning like this. Well, sort of at a tilt, but like this, right? Okay. So if you try to consider that when the plane takes off and accelerates from New York and starts heading west, it's actually traveling in the opposite direction as this rotation here. So it would just be a very short flight through the air because the destination LA would be racing towards it as the plane accelerates to the west. So the westbound flight should be much shorter on a spinning globe Earth. Unfortunately for the globe Earth model, um, the return flight from LA back to New York is often identical in duration. So what that means is somehow the flight from LA to New York is able to not only keep up with the Earth spinning that way, but also accelerate beyond the Earth's rotational frame of reference and go higher and higher into the air and somehow maintain that rotational frame of reference along with the ground, just like the westbound flight did when it was accelerating in the opposite direction as the spin, which is physically impossible, by the way. But people will say the planes were spinning at the exact rate of speed prior to takeoff, and the atmosphere is spinning with the face of the Earth. So I'd like to know, how is it possible for this atmosphere to be spinning east with the face of the Earth and rotating around a vortex? Um, it just doesn't make any sense. But when you look at this same, so we're looking at basically the southern tip of Alaska here. If you look at that same vortex in the AE projection,